Welcome to Workshop Topics. This episode offers some useful help and advice when cleaning rusty chucks. And here is a very good example of a rusty chuck. These of course are chucks from my Smart & Brown lathe that I sold to my friend a couple of years ago. He doesn't really have a workshop as such, and the Smart & Brown lathe along with all the ancillary equipment was put in his garage, which is not heated. And just to make the rusting problem even worse, he wrapped a couple of the chucks in cloths. He didn't wrap all of the chucks in cotton cloths, just two of them. That was the first one, and this is the second one. It's not quite as bad, but the rusting that's present is very deep. Scotch-Brite just doesn't touch it. I'll try emery cloth. And no, I don't think my lifespan's long enough to clean it with emery cloth. I'll try my battery-operated Proxxon motor tool with a small wire brush. And this method seems to be dislodging some of the rust. If you look closely, you will see the dust from the rust floating in the atmosphere. This is removing the oxide without any difficulty, but it's only really removing the surface oxide. It's not getting to the root of the problem. All it seems to be doing is polishing up the rust spots and leaving them in place. This is a better method, a flapper wheel. And I know that this method is successful because in 2015 I was doing a lot of work on my house, and I used much larger flapper wheels than this to remove all the rust on the cast iron guttering around the property. That also included removing the paint, and I think I went through about a dozen quite large flapper wheels. This won't take as long as it took to clean the guttering on the house, but it's still very tedious. After removing this first rust spot using the flapper wheel, I started to use some quite coarse wet-to-dry sandpaper. I'm using it wet, but I'm not using water. This is methylated spirit, just to aid the cutting process. When I freeze the frame, you can see how coarse the grit is on this sandpaper. Now I have a formula that I need to apply to every rust spot on the chuck, and this is going to take a while. And I'm going to pay particular attention to the cam lock area. The chucks on the Smart & Brown lathe use something called a cam lock system. The three shafts protruding out of the back of the chuck fit into three corresponding holes on the special fitting on the front of the spindle. It's a great system. It's incredibly simple. You just offer the chuck up to the fitting, make sure that the three pegs go into the three holes, then you tighten up the three cams which lock these pegs into the holes very securely, pulling the chuck very hard up against the fitting at the same time. So it really is very important that there are no lumps of rust on this register that sits up against the fitting, because that would make it impossible to get the chuck to run true. And if I'm perfectly honest, the only thing that really needs cleaning up is the cam lock register, but I can't live with the chuck with big lumps of rust all over it. In the next part of the job, I'm using 400 grit wet-to-dry sandpaper, and once again I'm using methylated spirit as a lubricant. Very soon I evolved an automatic process. First of all, I used the flapper wheel to get rid of the lumpy bits of rust. Then I used coarse emery cloth. Then I used coarse wet-to-dry sandpaper or silicon carbide paper to give it its proper title. I don't want to upset the particular viewer who wrote in. In this clip I'm using the flapper wheel on the cam lock studs. It's really important to get rid of every trace of rust in this area. And after all that, I finish off the job with some Scotch-Brite. And again, this is used wet using methylated spirit as a lubricant. This video is very heavily edited, and it took ages to do this. I did it in layers as I usually do. I go all over the chuck all the way round. Then I repeat the processes until the chuck looks acceptable. On the parts of the chuck where the rust is not lumpy, most of it can be removed with the small wire brush. I also use this type of wire brush, and here's a health and safety warning. You always need to wear eye protection when using these small motor tools, specifically if they're fitted with wire brushes, and the speed is important. If you have the tool running too fast, it just sheds the bristles in no time. And they stick in your jacket and in your t-shirt and become really annoying for the rest of the day. This is not a massive issue, but you do really need to wear eye protection, because I don't think a bristle in the eye is what I'd like to have. For the final part of the finishing, This wire brush did prove to be quite useful because it covers a larger area than the really small one, and it leaves quite an acceptable, presentable finish on the surface of the metal. Even though it's looking okay, there's still quite a way to go. This chuck was more rusty than I first thought. I have though got to the stage where I need to spray it with WD-40. Because the metal on the chuck is quite clean, it is going to be prone to rusting again. Rusting of the tools in the workshop really is a problem. I'm having a similar problem and I get away with it by using a dehumidifier in the workshop. I'm currently using an air conditioning unit in reverse. The internal part of the unit gets hot and the air blown over it gets warm. This unit recirculates the air in the workshop, which causes condensation. I'm currently looking at a different way to heat the workshop. What I'm doing at the moment is using the same wire brush in the slots and on the scroll, just to clean it out, to get rid of any rust or pieces of metal in this area. Once I'd done that, I cleaned up the jaws and I fitted them to the chuck. And don't forget, when refitting jaws to chucks, they all have a number and need to go in the numbered slots. If you put them in the wrong slots, well, try it and see what happens. The jaws will only work together and centralise if they're in the correct slots. After a quick wipe with the cloth and some WD-40, that's one done. And unfortunately there are 3 left to do, including this one. If you want your chucks to look like this, just wrap them in an absorbent cloth and shove them in the back of a cupboard somewhere in a damp atmosphere. Recently I bought myself an ultrasonic cleaner with quite a high capacity, and this chuck will fit in it. Cleaning it manually is just going to take a long time. And when I was shooting this part of the video, I really didn't think that the ultrasonic cleaner would manage to clean this off. So I tried it. I put the entire chuck in the ultrasonic cleaner with some solution that I bought for removing oxidization. And to my utter astonishment, after 30 minutes in the ultrasonic cleaner, every bit of the rust was removed. I didn't think it was going to work, so I didn't bother videoing it. At the moment I'm looking around the workshop to find rusty bits and pieces. I'm going to take these and put them in the ultrasonic cleaner, but this time I will video the operation. I think that's enough chuck cleaning for one episode. Stay healthy, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.